Estou passando nesse podcast para dividir uma informação que fez toda a diferença na minha vida. Quer fazer pós-graduação, mas tá impossível correr de um lugar para o outro?
Pois é, ainda mais com o trânsito.
Então você precisa conhecer a educação à distância do Senac. Sabia que é nota máxima no MEC? E tem diversos cursos de pós-graduação para te levar ainda mais longe. 100% online, sem necessidade de TCC e com acesso direto a todos os professores.
Ah, saber isso fez diferença sim.
Inscreva-se já na pós-graduação EAD. Quer saber? Senac EAD.
Hey, before we get to the show today, I want to say thank you. Whether you're a new listener or you've been part of this community for a while, I'm so glad you joined us today. But here's the thing. It takes a lot of work to make an engaging and informative podcast every single day. So whether you rely on us for deep dives into important topics like ranked choice voting or just advice on where to find Denver's best burger, the best way to support our work is by becoming a member of CityCast Denver today. For as little as $8 a month, you get an ad-free podcast feed and the sense of satisfaction that you deserve. Join now at membership.citycast.fm today. That's membership.citycast.fm. Today on CityCast Denver, a potentially record-breaking heat wave is forecast to hit the Mile High this weekend. So how hot is it going to get? And how much do you need to worry about wildfires or heat stroke or the Billy Joel concert getting canceled? 9 News meteorologist Chris Bianchi is on with all the answers you need to know. Today is Thursday, July 11th. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Chris Bianchi, welcome to CityCast Denver.
Hey, thanks so much for having me, Bray. Appreciate it.
So, Chris, I just want you to be real with me. Like, how bad is this heat wave supposed to be?
Well, I'll start with the good news. This isn't something we haven't felt before. You know, in terms of individual daily temperatures, we're going to be flirting with daily records. There's a pretty good chance we break or at least tie one or two of them. However, our all-time hottest temperature on record is 105 degrees. We've actually set that a bunch of times. We last did it in June of 2018. We're unlikely, not impossible, but unlikely to get there. I wouldn't rule it out, but there is a pretty good chance we'll stay below that. So the thing that'll stand out about this heat wave is just how long it is going to last for. That is truly the exceptional side of this is we can get a day or two of 100 degrees. We can get a day or two of 99 degrees. That happens each summer. We've actually already gotten to 99 and we've actually already gotten to 100 this summer in Denver. It's unusual for that to happen 4 days in a row. And that's what stands out about this.
So that's sort of the record-breaking part of it, is the longevity of the heat wave. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. So on a long-term basis, you go back to 1872, we averaged less than one 100-degree day per year. So when we get to 100, that is pretty unusual. What we're looking at here is a very likely possibility of 3+ days in a row, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, by the way. This would be July the 12th, 13th, 14th, where we're talking about 100 plus, maybe Monday as well. When you get into the 3 in a row at 100 or above, or even 99 or above, again, I don't know about you, Bree. I can't feel the difference between 99 and 100 degrees.
I know. I was like, it's just going to be hot as hell.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you're not exactly whipping out a winter parka because it's 98 instead of 100. Point being, when we're talking about this many days in a row at that level, that's when we start flirting with, we don't see this, certainly every year, every other year. We're talking minimum 5 to 7 years. Last time, by the way, we had 3 or more days in a row at 100 or above would be 2018. And if we get to 4 or more, which is a very realistic possibility, I'd call it about a 1 in 3 possibility, we get 4 or more. That's when we're talking, we've only had that happen 4 other times in recorded history in Denver. Last time being 2012. So this is pretty unusual.
Can we talk about why are we seeing this heat? Why is it getting so hot right now?
Yeah, so I'll start with the short-term basis. A lot of you have probably seen or heard about what we've seen on the West Coast. For example, on Tuesday, Seattle got to 98 degrees, 9th warmest temperature on record. Las Vegas over the weekend hit 120, hottest temperature on record there. You know, Death Valley was flirting, I believe, with 130. We're talking crazy, crazy heat. And this is all thanks to a big ridge of high pressure. If you ever see a weather map, like the ones I show on 9 News, things like that, you see a big old H on the screen. And what that is a lot of sinking air. And when you get that kind of pronounced period of sinking air. It's a bit of a feedback loop where you're getting more sinking air. For us in Denver, we get sinking air all the time. So the reason why we're so dry is that we get air flowing off of the mountains. It's called a downsloping wind. It's a drying, it's a warming wind. And a big ridge of high pressure, like the one we're seeing across the West Coast, is basically a giant version of that. In Denver, we get that on a regular basis, which is why we're basically the high desert. Now, that ridge of high pressure has been pretty anchored over California, Oregon, Nevada, and the Southwest over the last few days. It's kind of slowly, and I mean, this thing is kind of turtle crawling its way in our direction. So that is part of the reason why we're going to see it for such a long time, is that this thing is just not moving. And that's kind of a problem here. We're, again, not talking about a day or two of 100 degrees. We're talking 3, 4, and I would say 5 or 6 days very likely to be at 95 or above starting today. So this is a very, very prolonged hot stretch for us here.
And where or how does climate change play into this issue? Because, I mean, you mentioned Las Vegas, 120 degrees. That's scary level to me. And I wonder what or how climate change has to do with this particular weather event that we're experiencing.
Yeah, it's a great question, Bree. I actually spoke with a climatologist about this specifically because I know this question is going to come up, and it's totally understandable. It is hard to discern, whether 100 years ago this kind of heat wave would have been 97 or 98. We can presume, we can make some very strong educated guesses, and there is no doubt that heat waves are becoming more common because of a warming climate. So over the last 50 years, a heat wave, which in Denver and for the Front Range, the definition of that can vary a little bit, but generally speaking, the way I personally like to term a heat wave would be 3 or more days in a row at 95 or above. We get quite a few 90-degree days. We average 44 each summer at 90 or above. 95 is when you're talking about 15 to 20 days a year on average at 95 or above. So if you get 3 or more in a row of that, that's what I would term a heat wave. And we have about doubled, if not close to tripled in parts of Colorado, the amount of heat waves that we get per decade in the last 50 years. So there is a pretty stark increase in the amount of heat waves that we're getting. And I think, Bree, this is kind of maybe almost a slightly different topic here, but I hear this and there's a very real component. You used to not need air conditioning, and now that is a very real thing. And there's science behind that, Bree, because our average July temperature has increased from 72 to 76 in the last 50 years. That's about the difference, right? A 72-degree room. I'm actually sitting in a 72-degree temperature room right now. That's fairly comfortable. You go up to 76, and that's pretty sweaty.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. I don't love sleeping in 76-degree weather. I don't think most people do. So, yes, climate change is certainly at the forefront of this. And I actually spoke with the state climatologist, Russ Schumacher, about this. Very, very smart guy at the Colorado Climate Center up in Fort Collins. And he says that heat waves are the easiest way to visualize the impacts of a warming climate for us along the Front Range. So again, we've about doubled, if not close to tripled in parts of Colorado, the amount of heat waves that we're seeing on a regular basis.
I'm so glad you brought up the air conditioning thing, because that was in my back of my mind exactly. I grew up here. I don't remember, but it's like, is it anecdotal? Is it just like, are we just thinking it was better or less, hot back then? But that reaffirms what I think a lot of us have experienced for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is wishful thinking, but there was this Washington Post article recently that said that weather forecasts for Denver are accurate only 2 days out. So does that mean that maybe by Sunday or Monday, this thing could be gone and we were just that weather has changed that much, or that we weren't able to really predict what was happening?
Well, no is the sad answer. If you're hoping that we're magically going to go into the 80s for Sunday, that ain't happening. I think that when we're talking about weather forecasting, and remember, predicting the future is not an exact science. So I think a lot of people thankfully understand that here in the Denver area. And this is one of the more notoriously difficult places to forecast due to the mountains, and for a number of different reasons. But we're also, more interestingly to me, I think people immediately go, oh, Colorado's so hard to forecast, mountains, right? And the real reason is we're where the Gulf of Mexico meets the Pacific Ocean. So continental divide plus the mountains, that's what makes it difficult. You're getting all sorts of colliding air masses, and I know breaking news here, really far away from an ocean, which means we don't have any moderating influence on our weather. So transparently in Los Angeles right now, we have the marine layer outside right now, and that acts as a moderating influence on our weather. If you're closer to a body of water, you have that moderation. We ain't got that here in Colorado. So that's part of the reason why our weather is so crazy. That also makes it difficult to forecast here. There is no doubt about it. But a big ridge of high pressure like the one that's influencing our weather, that is very unlikely to change. So when we're talking about difficulty of forecasting winter weather events, snowstorms, again, that sort of thing, that's very difficult because they're often very localized. You get little bands of snow. Castle Rock might get 20 inches of snow and Thornton might get 2. That's what we're talking about. But big things like this are very unlikely to change. Again, maybe in a best case scenario, we're only quote unquote 97, maybe 96 if we're freezing. But the chances of this going to the upper 80s or something where I'm getting a lot of caps lock emails is very unlikely.
Enquanto você ouve suas músicas e podcasts favoritos, deixa eu te perguntar, você já sabe da novidade do ano? Chegou a nova Fiat Titano. A nova picape da Fiat faz bonito nos terrenos mais desafiadores. Performance com motor turbo diesel 4x4 e câmera 360 graus off-road, que ajudam você a ultrapassar qualquer obstáculo. Sem falar que ela tem a maior caçamba da categoria. Tá esperando o que para conhecer? Nova Fiat Titano, chegou a sua vez de fazer história. Paz no Trânsito começa por você.
O que acende a sua vontade de começar algo? Tem uma faísca em você que te chama para empreender, investir, dar novos rumos para sua vida. E para todos os seus começos, você pode contar com Santander Select. Um banco mais pessoal, mais próximo, mais humano. Um time de especialistas com um olhar atento para cada momento da sua vida. Porque você sabe, só quem já deu muitos passos está pronto para continuar começando. Santander Select. Começa em você, começa agora.
Back to this heat wave, like you said, again, it's not record breaking, but the concern is there. I mean, the impacts, I'm thinking about humans and animals. And I mean, is this kind of heat that could be dangerous?
Absolutely. So a couple of the basic things to kind of think about is, obviously just limit the dog walks, things like that. Thinking about our pets first and foremost. General rule of thumb, I think a lot of you might know this, is if you're out walking your dog, take the back of your hand and put it on pavement. And if your hand gets hot after about 10 seconds, it's too hot to walk your dog. Never, ever leave your dog, of course, in your car, things like that. I have a dog, I have a little corgi, and she's going to be asleep on the AC vent all weekend long. And just find the cool part of your house and just have plenty of water for your dog, right? The kind of more obvious bits of advice there. But I'll also share transparently that I have a friend of mine who's having an outdoor concert on Saturday.
That's what I'm thinking about, that kind of stuff.
Do you really want to do that? I said to her, I was like, I'm not going to stop you. I'm not your dad, but do you want to have an outdoor concert at Confluence Park at 2 p.m. on a Saturday when it's going to be 101? Is it that hard to spend a Saturday afternoon on Netflix? I don't know.
But what you're saying, though, is because, like you said, Colorado, Denver, we're used to the weather changing rapidly or being these sort of extremes. And we're outdoor concert goers. I think Red Rocks is one of the best venues in the world. But is this the kind of heat where maybe we should think twice about going to that outdoor show on an afternoon this weekend?
Yeah, afternoon for sure. If we're talking afternoons, I know Billy Joel's in town Friday night. Friday night, fine. One of the nice things about living where we live is that we do cool down a lot more than a lot of the coastal cities because of that same, continentality. We are far away from an ocean. We don't have anything that moderates our weather, but that also means at night we get really nice and cool. Even this weekend, where you still drop down into the upper 60s, right? So if you're going to Billy Joel on Friday night, you're talking about 80s. So it's hot, but it's not unbearable. Again, the basics, bring plenty of water, wear light colored clothing. I wouldn't think too much beyond that, but it's during the days, between 11:30 and 5 p.m., maybe if you want to go for a run, I don't know, if you have access to a treadmill or something like that, this is the weekend for that, or kind of treat it as a below zero day.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, that'd be the way I'd think about it. I would use a degree of common sense. Yeah, maybe not the weekend for an outdoor concert at 2 p.m.
Sure. So Another thing we have to talk about, though, I think here in Colorado that we worry about every year is wildfires. And should we be particularly worried around this kind of heat?
It's a great question. Yes is the answer. And I know one of the concerns I've got is that there will be more people in the mountains this weekend, understandably trying to escape the heat, which means more people equals more potential for wildfires. Human beings cause about 80 to 85% of wildfires. So when you have more people in the mountains, you have more potential fire start sources. So just remember that we're responsible for about 4/5 of wildfires. It's an unfortunate stat. So obviously be responsible if you're going to be up in the mountains, put out your campfires. In fact, the fire we had up by Twin Lakes earlier this summer was started by a campfire that wasn't put out. So please be cautious about that. And I say that because I know there's going to be more people in the mountains for understandable reasons this weekend. Certainly not to dissuade you from doing that. Just please be careful this weekend because it's also going to be really hot in the mountains. Like this is a statewide heat event. Grand Junction we'll have it probably a day or so earlier than us. It's really Thursday through Saturday in Grand Junction, Thursday through Sunday, really. Steamboat, even there, at Steamboat Springs, it's going to be probably close to 90. This is crazy heat for them. Vail, mid to upper 80s. So just keep in mind that even in the mountains, it's going to be really, really hot in those locations. But yes, I am worried about wildfires. It has been very dry, especially for us along the Front Range. One little blip of good news, though, Bree, is that in the mountains, they've had a pretty good run of rain of late. We've been bone dry here along the Front Range. So fireworks, anything like that, please don't mess around with that. We're bone dry right now here in the metro area. In the mountains, it is a bit different. They've had some recent rain. It's a bit of a better picture up there, but by no means are we safe up in the high country.
So maybe go to the mountains if you want it a little bit cooler, but still be equally aware of the wildfire issue, because just thinking about the wildfires we've had and how many have been sparked by such random small acts, as just not putting a campfire out, is something to think about. But I guess my last question really for you is are your friends not inviting you places because they're worried that you're going to be the party pooper? It's too hot to be at this barbecue, you guys.
I always say on social media, I'm fun at bars. My colleague meteorologist Lauren Robinson always calls herself kind of a libertarian meteorologist, where she's like, I'm just going to tell you what the weather's going to be, and it's up to you to figure out what to do with it. And I kind of like that approach where I'm not going to wag my finger, except in extreme cases. Honestly, I have a neighbor that shoots off fireworks, and that's a really stupid thing to do this weekend. Not only because it scares the living out of my dog. It's not just fun.
Dangerous.
It's also dangerous. What are we doing? What was it, 40 or 50 fires small fires that were started just last week?
Yes.
But this weekend we're begging for it. This is a really bad time to do it. And I would just say, if you're going to finger wag, that's where I would do that. Or, again, I have my buddy who has a great little band, but he's having an outdoor concert at 2 p.m. on Saturday. I'm like, dude, come on. I'm not going to tell him to stop, but
just think about it.
Just think about it. Yeah. Can you push it back to next week? I don't know, stuff like that. But have fun at Billy Joel. Have fun at Red Rocks. We got no rain chances. You'll be fine.
Just drink plenty of water.
Yeah, exactly.
And take Chris to a bar if you want to hang out with air conditioning.
Yeah. Or those little misty sprayers. I like those.
Yes.
We'll be fine.
Well, Chris Bianchi, thank you so much. This was really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, Bree. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell Billy Joel about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you later. Now I'm going to listen to some Billy Joel. I don't even know what it's called. He's like, Friday night, I crashed your party. It's like a song about him being a total wasted piece of work, and this woman should still love him.